one member of the crowd here I recognise might know Alice Jean. She married a William Fuller. She's not noticing yet. Can you hear me, Yvonne? Oh, good. Okay, pleased to hear it. Yvonne is the only really that I have in the congregation here. So Alice Jean married William Fuller, who had 3 children, Russell, Ken and Yvonne. Oh, sorry, who did I miss? Shirley and Russell? 3. There you go, I'm learning. Thank you. And you have a son and a grandson, at least still in town? Yeah. Dean's here and Clay, is it? Clay's taken up shearing? Yeah, good for him. So, yeah, the nearest relatives I have are the Fullers living in town. Then the other one is Auntie Jessie, who married Alan Mackenzie Sattler. So those who know the Sattlers out at Williams, Tawonga at least, that's the other part of that family. So, going back, my grandfather, Alf Senior, he married Alberta Jean Harris, 1924. She grew up first in Albany on a farm around about Lake Seppings. We'd like to own that one now. And then shifted to Peaceville. So Dad refers to the block, which is on the southwest edge of Peaceville, as Papa Harris's block. And her sister, of course, being Verna Evans. For those who know Bernie Evans, that's where Bernie Evans comes into my family tree. And in that family background are names like the McCormicks and the Moyers. These families had a reputation of being smugglers down around the Cape Reach and Wellstead area. Although what they were smuggling, I don't know. My nan often referred to them as the Mad Moyers and wouldn't have anything to do with them. They had a reputation of, at one stage, driving a horse off of a bridge and kind of some weird stuff. Anyway, years later, in her later life, she went to a family reunion in Amalup and came back delighted to tell us that they're actually quite normal. So they had 5 children. Ellen, or Nell, some might know, was in the Narrogin News Agency all her working life. My auntie Phil was born in 1927. She married a Bill Barron, and she currently resides in Corinna in Narrogin. Auntie Phil was the unfortunate victim of polio in the late 1950s, and so she spent her life since then in a wheelchair. Forever with a smile on her face, Auntie Phil. Nothing, absolutely nothing depresses her. She's amazing. So after that, Auntie Cess was born, Auntie June, and then my Auntie Cess. Now, Auntie Cess married Frank Weston. Most of you would know Frank Weston. He ran the bulldozing business for years and probably cleared most of this country. My dad was born in the middle of those, so he had 4 sisters. Now, grandfather Alf started his working life working for Ted Hill on a farm that Cam Clifton now owns. I don't know the name of that farm, Austin. You got a Flat Rock. Flat Rock, yeah, that makes sense. So it's on that farm anyway that he was working. He bought our home farm, our family farm, we call Narallan, in 1926. These were pretty hard times, and he bought it from the bank, so the bank owned it at that stage, on a lease purchase arrangement of £13, 7 and 6 per year. It was about 1,400 acres. Times would have been hard. 3 years later, the Great Depression struck. So I do recall, just recently we saw some documents, in fact, and there was a meeting of my grandfather's creditors around about then. And those creditors included the local doctor. He's not here today. I survived that one. The co-op, any directors of the co-op. And would you believe the Shire Roads Board? Part of the creditors. He must have survived that. And Dad recalls they had a stable of about 15 horses and worked in teams of 4. In September, they would use 4-furrow plough, which was about 2 feet wide, and fallow the paddock. The following year, they'd cultivate it with a 6-foot cultivator and then seed it with a 7-foot drill. Goes back a bit. Harvest was then done with a stripper and then put through a winnower to clean the seed. Both the stripper and the winnower were up there in the shed now. most of the crop was for stock feed, which was interesting. Dad always disliked horses. He reckons his childhood was basically spent shoveling it into horses at one end and shoveling it away at the other. They also milked 10 cows. The milk was put through a separator and the cream put on the train to the Wagin butter factory. Now, I didn't know about this one. Some of the more mature people might be able to help me out. Apparently it's managed by Bob Doig. Yep. Maury? Bob Doig?
Bob and Roy.
You remember that?
Yeah, Bobby Doig.
Yeah, it's not a name I know, thank you. And it was around about where the medical centre is now?
Yeah.
Yes?
The receiving depot.
Right, and it went to...
And then the cream was sent off to a factory somewhere.
Right, so it wasn't actually...
It wasn't a butter factory.
Okay, well, that's close. We'll take that. Thanks, Maury. So my grandfather was too young to go to the First World War, and at 40 considered too old to go to the Second. So when the bombing of Darwin happened, the Volunteer Defence Corps was formed, and he joined and served in Northern for 3 years. And during that time, my nan and the kids ran the farm. At the end of the war, with a bunch of teenagers, they shifted to Narrogin. Dad at the time was about 17. He continued, my pop continued to run the farm and went back to Narrogin occasionally, so he was fly out, fly in, if you like, a drive out, drive in way back then. My dad worked at the cool drink factory in Narrogin. Great Southern Refineries, you remember that name, Maury? Maybe not?
Not quite.
I certainly do, I spent a lot of time there as a kid. And it's around about where the Coles car park is now in Narrogin, and he became the manager of that business in 1955, and he was also working on the farm on weekends. Then Mum married Dad, or Dad married Mum, whichever way, 1954. Mum was a Spragg from Poppinenning. They had 5 children. Jen, the eldest, married Chris Bidoff, and you know, many would know Chris. Jen, they're farming in West River near Ravensthorpe now. Kay married Joe, geologist. There's myself, Wendy, who married Kim Rose and farmed out at Lake King for many years, now lives in Perth. My younger brother Doug, who married a Karen Letus and runs his own graphic design business in Perth. I always feel that he got all the talent in the family. Certainly not me. In 1960 we moved to the farm and we all went to school in Wagin. As kids I remember we often used to have to wait for a train to pass as we walked to the school bus. Always a steam train. A rare, very rare occasion was a diesel train was a real novelty. Now any train on that line's a novelty. We shared the school bus, and memories, we shared the school bus with the Carmody kids, the Hydes, the Thompsons, the Pieces, the Appletons and the Armstrongs. They came in from the west. And then the McNaughtons, the Morecambes, Edwards, Potts, Walkers, Darcys, Carns, Ganoways, Warnocks, Briggs, Cummingses. Cole, where is he? Yeah. You remember all these names? Have I missed any? Oh, I've had a couple of weeks to think about it. And we shared the bus stop with Terry Davey. Our early bus driver was Alan Ball. Some people would remember, yeah. I'm sure you do. He drove the main bus. Jim Evans and then Trevor Watts drove a feeder bus. They used to go and pick up the kids from out west of Peaceful and meet that feeder bus back into Peaceful. So, of all that, Jamie Blight in Beverley is actually the only Blight that we know that's related. There's several of the ladies who married out of that family name. So we think all the other Blights around the country have come from Cornwall. We're from Devon. For those who know, that's sort of like, you know, Wagin and Narrogin. It's next door anyway. So we've not been able to make a connection to those. So the Blights in Katanning, Noangarup, Highbury and Corrigan, if we are related, dates back to the middle of the 17th century. Throughout this, one thing that stands out, we've never married into the Wagin clans. So the Spurs, the Taylors, the Hammersleys and the Balls, we've never found a liking. Stay clear of them.
I don't think you should say that.
Oh. Thank you, I wanted a reaction. So I married Taryn, She's a Watts, one of the Watts clan from around Wandering Pingelly area. We have 3 kids and currently 7, soon to be 8 grandkids. Our son Alan has taken to farming, and his son Ryan is now the 6th generation Blight on a farm in Wagin. Long may that continue. Thank you.